Howdy folks, welcome back. Today Ichabod, who's out there sniffing around, and I are going to get on some electrical on the Z1-R project. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So let's get right to it. Alright folks, Ichabod and I are going to work on the electrical for the Z1-R. There he is. Hey buddy. As I said in the intro, what I intend to do in this video is to try to get the main wiring harness, a new one, which is in that bag, strung where it needs to go, hooked up to the instruments up front, and essentially get this built back up as far as where the battery goes. Now I have this bracket just laying in here temporarily because apparently the powder coater was asleep at the switch and didn't provide us that strap that goes across here, but my customer is bringing that over today. Gave me two other parts and I'm like, what are these things for? So they came from some other job. I don't know what this guy was thinking, but people make mistakes, I guess. That's just to keep this solid for now because I need to put a bracket on the side of it. Those are on the other side of the bike. There's a bracket over here where a couple of components go, and one on the other side where the other stuff goes. So I'm gonna build them up here in a little bit, but I want to show you the original wiring harness and we'll compare it to the new one. I haven't even opened this up yet. That's the first thing that I normally do when I get a major wiring job in, is I want to lay both harnesses out and compare the wire colors. Now you don't necessarily have to go and compare each color, but I've been doing this long enough where I'm familiar enough with the colors, what they would typically be, and of course the connectors, and make sure they're right. If they're not right, it's not a big deal because I have a connector kit. We can always repin them out with a different connector, but I'm pretty sure these are going to be right. We'll see in a minute. You can see this old wiring harness is pretty bad. We'll start from the back here. This would be the voltage regulator. Then you have the little fuse box right there, the starter solenoid, main fuse, turn signal, some connectors. This goes on the other side, this goes on the left side, these connectors here. This is the rectum fryer, an ancient rectum fryer. So I don't know what kind of diode it is, Zener diode or something. Simple bridge rectifier, I guess. This your brake light switch for the rear, and then the main wiring that comes down in different parts of the bike, like in the middle here. This would be like probably over this frame area, most likely, I'm guessing, based on how it's stretched. I don't know exactly which ones go where, but they all go to different places, or similar places at least. And got some of these marked when I took them off. And then your front section, of course, is headlight, and then your connectors that go up to the instrument cluster, which I'm not going to worry about that. All I really want to do is get this so I'm going to ultimately have main power that goes through the kill switch up here and the starter switch. So when we get to that point, we'll be able to crank it over and start it up. Like I said, we're not going to get to that in this video. This is your wires that come off of the pickup on this side for the ignition. So we're going to match them up with the appropriate ones that come up to through the harness or in the harness. And then we're going to mount some coils when we get to that point. Got some brand new coils for this, which is the Dynatech ones. Dynatech, that's it. Yeah. So again, that'll be another video because this is going to take some time to get it all laid out. I'll put you in the stand. We'll open up this new wiring harness and lay it out next to this one and take a look at it. I got this harness from Z1.net, not Z1 Enterprise. They didn't have one. Z1.net out in California. And if I could find the package I just took it out of, I'll give you the part number off of it. I got this wiring harness from Z1 Parts Incorporated, or Z1parts.net is the website. About $200 for this harness. Main wiring harness for the 1000 and Z1-R, 78 Z1-R D1. The item is Z as in zebra, 1 P as in Papa, 3309, the number rather, not the item. Yeah, so if you're interested, look them up. Z1 Enterprise didn't have any. The one up in Tampa I normally deal with, so that's where I got it from them. I've had it for a while, I just haven't opened it up because it hasn't been time. So what I do here is I just kind of give it a quick look-see to make sure that the wire colors and so forth are basically the same. Basically, it doesn't really matter if the colors are a little bit different, because as long as the plugs are right, and as I said before, we can correct that too. The wire colors can be sorted, because most of them are going to be right. I can guarantee you right now they're going to be right, but there may be some slight variances. How we determine it is we use the wiring diagram and just some simple logic as far as the wiring goes, the photos that I took when I took it apart, and any other information that I see fit to use, maybe off the web, but for the most part I can do this just by those three things that I mentioned before. So we can look at this one right here, this big plug. Let's see, that would be this guy here. You can see that we have, there's a blue with a white, blue with a white, red with a white, or red with a, yeah, red with a white, and then white with a red over here. So you can see those are matching up okay. There's yellow down there, black with a yellow, black with a yellow, and then white with a green, white with a green. So, you know, this looks right. I'm going to scan it over a little bit more off camera, but this is what you want to do. You want to look at these harnesses when you get them in and make sure they're basically the same, or even more than basically, because it'll give you a lot of problems if they're not. We'll take a look at this middle one right here where this big one goes, which I think goes under the spine, or the main spine there underneath the tank, if I'm not mistaken. Look at the colors on that, and that would be right here. And yeah, so we got yellow. That's yellow with a blue. There should be a regular yellow in here, I think. There's yellow with a blue there. Yellow with a blue here. Solid yellow. Let's see if we got one of those. Yep, there's a solid yellow there. Okay. It's got some tracing on it, but I think that still means solid yellow because it doesn't have any stripes. Maybe just the way the wire was manufactured. Sometimes that does indicate a yellow with a red, but for the most part I don't see another solid yellow in here, so I would say not. That's the solid yellow. And then we got blue with a red, blue with a yellow, and let's see, blue with the yellow is right there. We got blue with a red right there. Yeah, so you know, this is, I can tell right now this is going to work fine. All right, so what I'm going to do now is kind of clean up this area, and I'm going to do this off camera. I need to get these components, which are attached to the wiring harness still on this bracket, for example. I'm going to get these unplugged, which go to, let's see where they go to on this harness here before we do that, on the new harness. There should be plugs for them. There's one there. This is actually, yeah, there's one there. This one goes direct, here you go. This one goes directly to there. This is your rectum fryer, so you have your three yellow, which is your stator leads, and on the bottom here it comes up from the stator. That's going to be hooked up through the harness down on where the stator is. Actually, the plug that comes up here, rather. And I think that goes in right there, actually. Yes, it does. So the stator comes in here from those wires down there. Also the neutral safety, or the neutral switch, rather, and I think oil pressure or something like that. That's why you have 5 pins. And yeah, so what we need to do is just unplug this from the old harness, mount it on the plate, and then I want to string the harness first, just kind of lay it in place on the frame instead of hooking it up to, you know, the components, because I don't want to take any chances of slinging this thing over and it scratches that powder coating, which I love so much. Not. So we'll get all the components on the plates that they go on, you know, the metal, it's part of the battery box, run the wires to them, and then start hooking them up that way, the ones we absolutely know. So like I said, I'll clean up over here first, get this old harness, or the new harness out of the way, take all that crap off, and then we'll continue from there. Okay, we're on the left side now. This is the starter solenoid, of course. Then you have the rectum fryer. Here is a little, this is the main fuses, little fuse case. And we have this rectum fryer hooked directly into there because that's where it goes. Some of these things, like I said, you know, before, I think, just connected to themselves. This was one of them. And so we have some other things that need to come over to it as well, but those are on the main wiring harness, you know. And you know, I don't exactly remember everything when this came apart because it was months and months ago. So what I rely on is photos. Got them on the big screen. This is just one of the pictures. Be on the other side of the bike, the other side of the electrical. And I have a bunch of photos. That's why it's important to take them. And that way I know where stuff goes. Back here is another little fuse holder doodad. I just cleaned all this stuff up. And by the way, how I clean all this stuff is soap and water, believe it or not. Now, I don't necessarily deluge electrical components with water unless they're completely sealed. But I use that Dawn dishwashing, the power wash, you know, the squirt thing that comes out kind of foamy, and then a brush. And it takes this crap off and makes the stuff look almost brand new. And remember, these components are water resistant. I mean, they're on a motorcycle. They're not, you know, in a sealed container. Like, you know, on fire trucks and stuff where they had sensitive electronics, they would have a sealed container with sealed rated grommets that go in and out of the box where there's penetrations. We don't have that situation here. So, you know, we can be a little bit, you know, wet. We can get a little wet is what I'm saying. I didn't immerse this, for example. I just wiped this off. But, you know, this is all sealed up. I just douched that. And then took this apart and douched that. And the same thing with this little fuse holder right there. And it comes out pretty good. Now what I do when I put the connections back together, because there might be some moisture left in there, is I just dribble a little bit of WD-40 on the connectors. It actually makes a pretty good contact cleaner as well. Again, just a little bit. You don't want to douche it. And it works, like I said, good. So this came out really nice as well. That's how I cleaned all these. Just douched them, blew them out, put a little bit of a WD on the terminals and whatever goes into it as well. The other side's a little simpler. It's got this auxiliary, what is this? Reserve lighting device? I don't know what it is. I honestly don't know. This is your regulator. Rectifiers over there and your voltage regulators over here. And so we'll be making appropriate connections with the wiring harness on those, which we're going to do now. We're going to go ahead and I'll get you back in the stand and we'll set you up so we can just lay the harness over and kind of start getting it laid in. And that's another thing that you use your photos for, because I'm not exactly sure, you know, how, you know, it's pretty obvious where it runs, but I don't know the different nuances, so I'm going to rely on the photos I have on thumb drive right here, and that way I can, you know, reference it as I go. So that's why I like to have the big TV out here, because this is hard to see, that's not, especially with my eyes, which are pretty much going. Oh yeah. This is for your starter, of course. It would go the other side of the solenoid, and it's way too long. So, you know, I have the crimp tool and the crimp kit for this, so we'll cut that down later on and make it a better install. I can't run anyway because I got this temporary bracket in here. Once I get the actual bracket, I can start running these. This is off your stator, and like I said before, I think it's the neutral switch and oil pressure or something. That's why there's 5 terminals on it instead of just 3. It's a 3-phase stator. This will go right in there when the time comes, behind the frame, of course. A little bit on the long side, but we're not going to cut this one down. This guy is coming from the voltage regulator. You can see it comes underneath there, so we can actually plug that in right now and just leave it, because it goes in there. Might as well just leave it where it goes. This little bullet right here, bullet connector, which should be a ground. I'm not 100% sure what attaches to that, but we'll see when we lay the harness in. That's another thing. You really don't have to remember exactly where everything goes. Again, number one, your photos, and number 2, you got a wiring diagram, which I'm about to pull out. And so that way, when we start hooking stuff up, if it isn't abundantly obvious where connections go, then I pull the wiring diagram out and go, okay, this color goes there, this color goes there. And it's a good practice anyway to verify. Like, for example, this is a ground off of the rectifier. And I would imagine, based on the size of this terminal right here, this is a little bit big for a frame ground. Well, maybe not, it's M6, but I think this went right to the battery. Pretty sure it did. It's got that kind of connector on it, you know, that kind. There is a main ground spot right here on the back of this feature of the frame, the support bracket here. That is a ground. That is not. That's just a feature of the weld, but this is a threaded area for ground, probably when the wire comes down here. But we're not going to know that until we lay it out, and that's why we don't throw away the old wiring harness until we're completely done too. Because if we get really stuck, we can just kind of lay the old harness on top of the new one, and it'll want to kind of go where it was based on the memory. Believe it or not, that will work. Anyway, let's get the new one laid in. Pictures I have show the main wiring harness coming down the left side here. I got a loosely wire tied up there going between here and under, and then coming down this way, which makes sense. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's right, but it's what we got to go off of. Plus we have one of these plugs that go into down here. Got to figure out where that one goes actually, because it's a different color. But we're just going to go off the wire colors here and see which one it is. And of course that's where we're going to pull the wiring harness, the wiring diagram out, and then verify that that's where these go. Because we have a black with a, yeah, I see where it goes right now. We have a black with a yellow, one there, a green with a red, and one there. Let me show you what I mean here. See, these colors exist right there. Even though this is a black plug, this is brown, we can pull the other wiring harness over and verify that. I'm not sure if that was black on that one. Probably not. It was brown. So it looks like the right colors. We'll have to make sure that the pins line up. There is a, let's see if that, yeah, there's a brown right there. You see there's a brown right there. There's a brown right there. So I would say it's the right one, but let's go ahead and take a look at the other wiring harness just to make sure. And this is how I do it, at least. You know, I kind of just work through it one piece at a time. And like I said, if you lay this wiring harness on top of the other one like this, this is going to kind of want to go in the direction that it was in. Now on this one, it is brown, so it just happens to be a different color on this new wiring harness. All right, so you know, no big deal. We go off of the wiring colors instead, and that's where we're at. And let's double check these by comparing them. And the pinout looks right. Yeah, green with a red is in the top left. Then we have a black and a black. Yeah, so that goes there. We know that. And then, like I said, this thing will kind of take the form in which it was when it was in here, roughly. And you get a good idea where this stuff goes. Like I have some of these marked where they went by letter. I lettered them. And unfortunately, well, I wiped off most of the lettering because it really isn't terribly relevant, because I can always figure this out. But you know, if you did something like that and you were putting the same wiring harness back in after a frame off, you know, or something, that's what you'd use that for. Go ahead and continue. Now the wiring on in my photo shows this wiring harness running on the outside of this frame here. I don't believe that's correct. Let me show you what I mean. See, there's the photo I'm talking about. You see how the main harness comes on the outside of the frame? I don't think that's right. I don't know why it would be like that, because the side cover goes over that. And so I'm going to run it on the inside. It makes the most sense. Like I said, somebody may have had this apart, and you know, we're going off of incomplete or you know, incorrect information, but I kind of doubt it. But that's why the pictures are important, because if they don't jive with what you think is right, what you think is right is probably right. Except in certain situations where you're like, why won't it work? Well, you got to run the wrong way, dummy. This is all wiring for other stuff. We got to figure it out. And there may be more wires in here than we need too, so don't be alarmed if you're like, you know, holy cow, where's all this crap go? Well, you may not use these. You may not use half of them. You know, they just may not be for this particular application. Sometimes these wiring harnesses are kind of broad spectrum as far as what they cover, and you may not have any particular place to put those as far as some of the connectors go. All right, so we are basically laid here. We got laid, so we're going to go ahead and sit back and have a smoke. And basically we're going to start looking at individual things that are not connected yet and figure out where they go. I need to pull the wiring diagram out, and I need to start verifying this stuff, and that'll give me an idea where I need to source or locate the places for this, where this stuff goes. Because right now I'm looking at this going, I really don't see anything. There is one right here. This is a black with a yellow, which is typically ground on these Kawasaki's, so it very well may go right there. But I'm going to go ahead and pull the wiring diagram out, and we'll see for sure. Okay, my printed manual does have KZ1000D1 wiring diagram, US Canadian model, but it's not in color and there's no delineation of what the wire colors are, so that doesn't help. But I got one online that is, got it up on the big screen, and so we'll refer to that back and forth because I can see on this one with a magnifying glass what this component is. Can't read it up there, but I can see the colors. So we'll just use the two of them together and make sure. You're not going to need it a whole lot though if you just use some common sense. Like for example, this plug here, it's part of the leg that goes to the back of the bike for lighting and things like that. I'll talk about these here in a minute, these big ones. But this little one right there is the right plug. It's got the right number of pins and the wire colors are basically the same. There's a white piece of tubing on here which is apparently to draw your attention to it for some reason. I don't know why, but it's probably saying, you know, it is blue, but it isn't exactly the same color blue you might find. I don't know, but that's the case. Solid blue, blue with a white, blue with a white, red with a blue, red with a blue, and so forth. So that definitely goes there. So I got to loosely tie it up. These guys right here, not this one, but these two right here, are going to be for this flasher. One of them's a turn signal flasher. I think the other one over there is for hazards. Not really sure I see a hazard switch on here up in the handlebars, but anyway, that's what I'm reading, at least in the wiring diagram. Now, where these guys go, we're going to verify this. This big heavy guy, okay, is going to be a main battery feed, or it's going to be a main battery fed side, depending on how this hooks up. I think this is what feeds this fuse block here, so it is a feed. So this is your battery feed source right here, where two of these guys go in. Now, obviously this one's not going to go in because it's a female, but these two males will. And I do remember there was two of them plugged into one, so they got to be these two right here. There is another white one over here, but that would be three, so it wouldn't go there. That goes somewhere else. We're going to figure that out here in a little bit. But I'm pretty sure that these go into here. You got red with a white, okay, and you got a white. But these are the ones that go in there, I'm almost positive. But we're going to verify that by taking a look at the wiring diagram. And we'll come up here to the rectum fryer, which is right here. So now we know where it's at. Now we'll go over here and we'll take a look at the rectum fryer. And we can see that our, looks like that's probably the white wire right there. There's the white wire, comes down. I know there's a glare there, but I'm trying to show you some here. The white wire comes down, goes there, goes over, and goes into what? It goes into the dual connector. This is a 1-into-2 connector. You see there's one wire and two wires. So that white one and the white with a red, which goes to that fuse, those fuses there, as we saw the way it's hanging there, goes into this double one. So this is how you can do this. Even if you don't have a really good clear wiring diagram, you can use two of them to figure it out. Because again, I'm going to use this one to say where's the component, because I can read that with a magnifying glass. And then use that one for the color. So I know that that's where this one goes. I know this one and that one go to that one, all right? Okay, we're going to do the same thing with this guy right here because I'm not exactly sure where this black one goes, but I assumed and figured most likely it was a ground. This would be a ground for it, even though the wire size is different. Unless there's another one poking around in here, I don't see another one, so I'm pretty sure that's it. And how we can verify that again is this comes from the voltage regulator over there, okay? So it's off of that harness coming over. It's a male, that's a female, so there's another, you know, obviously a good indication that they go together. So we're going to come over this wiring diagram. We find the regulators right here, and we can see that black wire with a separate bullet connector is right there. That looks like it's black with a white, but it's not. If you come over to the color drawing, one has got the wires denoted by color, you can see the black goes up to there, and it goes up to a black with a yellow. Now, our aftermarket wiring harness is black with a yellow up to here, but it's the same thing. They just chose to do it that way. So again, black, bullet, goes to black with a yellow because it goes up to that, and that's a ground. Kawasaki uses that as a ground. So that's where we're going to plug that one. All right, so this is how you can do it. You don't need to get overwhelmed by, you know, all these wires and stuff laying around, because once you lay it in place, you can always adjust it, number one. Number two, you just start identifying circuits. What is the component? What are the wire colors? Okay, on your main harness that you just put in, your new harness, are there the same wire colors on there? Is it the same plug? And if you're unsure, you do that little trick with the wiring diagrams, plural if necessary, and then you can figure out where this stuff goes. Pretty easy, actually. Something else I'll show you here is this black connector we were discussing before that goes into the brown rather, is really hard to go in, and I can't seem to get it to seat too well. Now, if I really push it, it will hook up. And that's because the pins are, number one, new. Number two, they're aftermarket, so they might be a little slightly larger size or diameter, and they're not worn down. So what you want to do in these cases is just a tiny bit of dielectric grease on them just to lube them up. That'll help them go in. It'll really help a lot. All right, those are in now, so that's really snug. That's fine. We don't want it to come out, but you work it in and out a few times, it'll be better, but we're just going to leave it for now because that is definitely in. And just the way she is, the way the pins are. So yeah, and I know it's right because it won't go the other way. Okay, I just want to show you that. That'll help you out a lot, just putting a little bit of dielectric grease on it. So we already did that. We did these. I'm not going to do all the connections. I'm just going to show you a couple of highlights here, and then kind of things that I come across that I think might be beneficial to you. We can figure out where this white one goes off of the this harness right here, which is the attachment between these connectors on this particular circuit strip, really this plug strip, but I'm not really sure where it goes. So again, let's do our little thing with the wiring diagram. Let's see, we need to find that connector essentially. This is kind of useless for this kind of thing because it's not a component that you're looking for. It's hard to identify which connector this is. So we're going to find the closest thing to it, and there is a white wire that comes off of the actually off the fuse holder here. Okay, it's a female, that's a male, so we're going to say, all right, it's kind of lonesome, it's an orphan, let's see if we can mate it up with a family member. And in this case, we're going to come over to the colored drawing up here, and we're going to find the little fuse block, which is right here. All right. Now it looks gray, but this is white. We got one coming off that particular fuse outside on this. This is the wires that penetrate that little fuse block into their individual locations, and then come over, and there's a butt connector, and it goes white to white, and that goes over to a different location. We can trace it up, but we're not going to really need to do that because we know that nearby this fuse connector, this fuse holder, is a white to a white. That's got to be it because there is no other one. So then we know that goes there. Simple. All right, let's do another one because this is kind of fun. I like doing electrical stuff like this. I like the solution, which usually presents itself, or if it doesn't, using the wiring diagrams to just use some logic to determine what the solution is. Plus, I love shoving these plugs together. When you just shove it, it's just very satisfying.
That's what she said.
So up here I wanted to show you this this white tubing, which we thought on the other one was just a piece of white tubing, but guess what, it's not. Once I saw this, I spun this around and said, it's indicating it's a different color. L/G. Now I'm not really sure what they mean by that, L/G, because that would be like light green, or I don't know, something with a green. Well, there's no green tracer on that wire, but it is blue, and it is blue on that side, and we know this connector goes here because the other wires go there. So I'm not really sure what this one means, but up here this would be green with a red, G/R. I'm gonna have to look up the nomenclature on this and see what they mean by that. Sometimes they're identifying colors a little differently as far as the lettering goes. Like L is sometimes, you know, purple or blue or something, I don't know. But there is no tracer on this wire, so I'm not really sure why they did it that way. Either way, or in other applications, it might get hooked to like a blue with a green, for example. But in our case, it doesn't. So again, sometimes these harnesses are dual purpose, where on a different KZ1000, this is not a blue wire down here, it's a blue with a green. Okay, and I think that's probably what that's about. Up here it says it's a green wire without a tracer, but it says in some applications, I guess it would be a green with a red. So where that goes is that device down here, this little box thing. I forgot what it's called again. And that's where that plugs into. It's a 9-pin, because you have 2 plugs here. You got 9-pin with 9 pins occupying all spots. You got a 3-pin with only 2 pins in it, and that's what you have here. You got a 9-pin and a 3-pin with only 2 active. And then the bullet connectors we'll deal with later. So what we need to do is take a look at this and see how that lines up as far as what the color is. Remember, these only go one way. You have these features of the plug that won't allow it to go any other way, these 2 edges that pronounce downwards. Let's line that up and see what that goes to. Alright, it goes to it's like a dark blue. That's a light blue. We experienced that at another location. So I'm guessing, this is totally a guess, in some applications this would be going to like a blue with a green instead of just a blue, because this is not a tracer wire. It's a solid. But we need to verify that this is where it's supposed to be, and that's pretty easy because, oh, we have another one over here. I didn't even see that. So green with a red. Let's hook this one back up. Let's see if that's a green with a red. This one up here, because this is the corner it goes to right there. Green with a red, and no, this is just a solid green, but it's a light green. So I would say that that lines up, but again, in other models and other situations, it would go to a green with a red. But you see that red lines up to that. You got a black that goes to that one. You got a yellow with a red, yellow with a red. So this is most definitely where that goes. Plus, where's it going to go? Where else is it going to go? There's no other 9 pins over here, especially none with a 3-pin with 2 pins that are pinned out in it. So we know this is going to go over here, going to come across most likely here, and go on the other side, and then we'll run it over. But for now, we'll just stick it together so I know where it goes. We'll do the final, finite adjustment routing of all these wires at a different time. See, these things are tight, but these little pins here you got to watch out for, because it's real easy to bend one of these over. But they're pretty tight when they go together, especially in a new plug. There it goes. That goes in. Then we take a look at the smaller guy here to make sure that, number one, the 2 pins are in the appropriate location, because there's only 2 pins of this 3-pin plug used. So we want to make sure that those pins are the ones that are actually pinned out, because if they're not, then we got other issues here. But they are. And then we'll double check the colors here. So this is, let's see, this one is, there's a green with a yellow, and this is a green with a white. Okay, so you say to yourself, green with a yellow and then green with a white, but then there's a blue, a solid blue and a solid blue, and we have those there. Okay, we've got at least one of the colors for sure, but if we want to make sure 100%, we just go to our trusty wiring diagram again, and we look for that device. Let me look for what that's called again. I can't remember. Okay, so write this one down so I don't forget. This is the reserve lighting device. So the reserve lighting device, that's where all these wires go that we're screwing with right now. On this drawing, here's your reserve lighting device. You see that there are a big connector. It says 9P, so 9-pin, and then a 3P. All right. So we're going to go up here because we know where it is on the drawing. It's right up in there. Now, which ones did we have a concern about? So why don't we just go ahead and double check it to make sure. So if we look at this 9-pin, you see the G&R, Guns N' Roses. You got a green with a red. Now, this does have a tracer. I thought it didn't before, but it's a blue tracer. But it's saying it's a green with a red. Okay, so remember, this is the bike side of this component, or the factory wire. Let's say that's a factory wiring harness. Let's say it's the factory wiring component, or the factory wiring side of this component. And this is the component side. So you've got a green, and it wants to be going to a green with a red. So we can verify that that's correct by, does the wiring diagram have a green with a red on this side of it and a green on this side? So let's go. Where's this component again? This reserve lighting thing, which is right up here, reserve lighting device. We can't tell from here, so we'll go over to the color-coded one. And we're going to go up here, and we're going to find a green. It looks like it's right there. Sorry about the glare again. I'm going to try to get you out of it. Let me zoom up and maybe you can see it better. So there's your green. and that green comes through the connector, and oh, whoa, what's that? Goes to a green with a red. So that is absolutely correct then, because we verified it on the wiring diagram. Right, so they're just indicating the wires to what they're supposed to be on this side, and probably this particular application. In a different application, they probably wouldn't have that on here. So because it would be appropriate to have it a green with a blue. I'm not going to worry about the rest of it here. And in these guys right here, you can see that we have a green with a white and a blue. We got a green with a white and a blue, so we know that one's fine too. So yeah, this is how you can do this. It's actually not that hard to do, and I think it's kind of fun. Yeah, folks, I'm liking it. I think that we're going to be fine here. You know, this is not a terribly difficult job. It looks like it is. You throw a brand new harness on, and it's got all these connectors and all these plugs and all the wires on it, and you're like, where do I start? Well, again, I like to start at the source where the power comes out and then work my way out from there. That's why we did it here, but also because there's nothing up front to hook up to anyway besides the wires coming off the handlebars. I haven't got that far yet. And plus, we need to verify the engine is sound from the engine builder, so that's why I'm focusing on this. I don't need a fairing and a headlight on here to run this thing to make sure that it's okay. What I do need is I need power, I need grounds, I need coils as well, and carburetors and fuel and an exhaust, and I got all that stuff here, so it's just a matter of time before we hook everything up and do that. But I wanted to show you a couple ways to identify your circuits and make sure that you are comfortable with the circuits that you're plugging together, and work your way through it, because don't be intimidated by it. It's not that hard, it really isn't. So if you like what you saw, give me a thumbs up, consider subscribing to the channel, definitely ring the notification bell. You get notified when I put another video up and crap like this, and I guess that's it. So until next time, thanks for watching. Don't just repair, restore, and catch you on the next video.